This instrument called the Mbira, a thumb piano, on my mom's belly. I played this African spiritual piece that I'm forgetting the name of right now. And I played it like every night for like 3 months straight. And then the day that I was born, you know, screaming and crying as babies do, and in the room, and he starts, this obviously I don't remember, this is what I've been told, but he started to play that same piece, and I like immediately stopped crying and turned and looked at him. And so that's what my parents, like, that was when we were like, okay, he'll maybe do something in music in his life. But then he had me playing, you know, congas and djembe when I was little, and then my godparents got me a little toy keyboard when I was 4. But my dad still got me cello lessons around that time for about 4 months, and every time I would go to the lesson, I'd go straight to the piano and would ignore the cello. And so the teacher was like, I think your son wants to play piano. And so then he found a teacher at Teaneck, and the rest is history. So he's the real reason, you know, I'm doing this. And then obviously following that, teachers I've had in the past, people like Fred Hirsch, Bill Sharlow, who's still very much important in my life. Harold Mabur, who I mentioned yesterday at the concert. Dave Kokoski, who's a great pianist. Mark Carey.
So were those like piano lessons where you would sit there and you would do scales,
Yeah.
and they would tell you where to put your fingers?
Well, that was, I had teachers earlier in my life who, that was the...
So these are more the artist
Yes,
side of it.
yes, this is...
You already had the basics down, and they would bring the
Yes.
get the art out of you.
Yes, yeah, this is after the initial... I didn't know that I wanted to play piano as a career until I was like maybe 15 or 16. And that's when I started studying. I studied with Fred Hirsch, who's also an incredible jazz pianist, one of the best. And I was 15, and I, you know, still in my very elementary, immature ways of playing piano. You know, I hadn't really checked out jazz like as I should. I knew who like Powell's, I knew who Oscar Peterson was, Artaud, but like I was still playing root position voicings in my left hand, like just not really super into it yet. And so Fred was the first person, again, remember I'm 15, he was the first person who laid into me and was blunt, which I needed, and that kind of ties into a long lineage and historical context to jazz music and Black American music and how it was taught all the way dating back to when it started, and how people like Art Blakey and Miles Davis and Campbell Adderley and Horace Silver, like when they lit their bands and they hired younger cats, you know, they would tell you what's up, and they wouldn't hold back, and so
That's important, right?
it is important, yes, and I think there's a way to do that that's very different nowadays than it was back then, you know. But Fred was straight up with me, you know, and I needed that. And I studied with him for about a year, and then the last lesson, you know, I learned a lot, but the information he was throwing at me was not something a 15-year-old can really comprehend, at least not that I could comprehend. And so I was doing my best to keep up, but the last lesson he was like, you need to go back to the nuts and bolts of playing piano, which really like hit me. I was like, damn, he's right, you know? And so I was 16 at that point, just turning 16, and that's when I was like, okay, I'm in this, and I want to prove to myself and to him and to like everyone else that like I can do this, you know. And then through that, I really fell in love with just the music and the expressiveness of it.
Did any of that ever degenerate into fighting and arguing and conflict, or was it always
All the time. with other people and with a lot with myself.
Well, you were, adolescence is that anyway, so
Yes.
you had to learn during all of that rebellious time. What were you rebelling? What did you have to rebel against? I mean,
Practicing.
I was going to ask you about practicing. Yeah, did you hate practicing?
Yes. I still do.
Does every musician hate practicing, or some people?
No, not every. I mean, it's funny. Most people, what I've noticed, most musicians who like really are out here doing it and making it, you ask them about practicing, they're like, yeah, no.
So what is practicing? Is it just going through like technique, or is it what is practicing at this point in your development?
For me personally, it's kind of just keeping up with some technique, playing classical music, because that's something I used to do a lot. I had a classical teacher in high school, separate from my jazz teachers. And that was very important, because classical music, aside from being extremely beautiful, and I love so many different classical composers, but once I got to college, I wasn't playing as much. And so later in my junior, senior year, I realized like I need to, not only does it help facilitate technique and keep that up, but it's also it's a part of piano lineage. Like I just need to be doing this as a pianist. So doing that, playing etudes, playing a lot of Bach, chorales, and stuff that kind of stimulates my brain. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the pianist Sullivan Fortner. He just won a Grammy for his album. He's one of the best younger pianists right now in his 30s, maybe. Him and Emmett Cohen are top of the game. Anyway, I took one lesson. I call it a lesson. It wasn't really a lesson in Sullivan. We were just hanging out as a partner. And he was saying all he does, his practice is just he'll sit at the piano for 30 minutes and play a couple Bach chorales, and that's it. You know, I mean, there comes a point where if you're learning a song, or if you have a concert coming up and you need to learn music, right? Okay, like you're going to spend some time and show that music. But I don't know. I find that I personally draw inspiration and motivation to practice my own art and my ideas and composing through seeing other people play, seeing other people in my generation play. You know, it's not. I don't wake up and say, okay, I'm going to sit down right now and practice for 2 hours and do like I just don't think that that's super productive.
Do you feel any kind of competition with the other people that are around your age playing? You see where they're playing and what they're doing and where they're getting to. Is there any sort of feeling like that, or you're just in your own space because you're doing your own art?
I mean, I would be lying if I said I didn't feel. I wouldn't call it a competition. I would say like
Aware of your own.
Aware, yeah. You know, we all have egos, whether we can admit it or not. We all have egos, and people's egos are bigger, smaller, whatever. So, you know, I personally am very close with a lot of the pianists, at least in New York, in my general age group, and I love all of them, and they're all very, you know, pianists don't get to hang out often. Not many situations where we can. So when we do, it's a beautiful thing, and it's there's a lot of camaraderie. But yes, obviously, like if someone is doing some big thing and I'm not, it's like, you know, I'm not gonna not feel some type of way. But that's okay, because I'm still happy for them. And the whole point of this is we're keeping this music alive, and we want to do this as a career. Right? If we go into a hole of competitiveness and I'm better than you or this and that, then why are we playing music? Why are we doing this? It completely defeats the purpose.
You know, there's